2 weeks ago, I shared my new trading bot and explained the strategy behind it. Since then, I've been running it live with real money. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what happened, the trades that it took, the problems I had to fix, and whether it actually made a profit. In the last update video, I talked about adding a couple of forex pairs, the pound dollar and the dollar yen. The rules for the forex pairs are the same as the S&P 500. The bot aims to catch quick momentum and reversal moves. I did a lot of testing and deployed the bot the next day thinking that I had all the bugs figured out, but it turned out that I was wrong. The 16th of July is when I deployed the updated trading bot, and at around 1:30 UK time, there was a sudden burst of momentum that my trading bot picked up. This was on the S&P 500, but it also happened on the forex pairs. And the bot immediately opened a position on each of those instruments. However, it didn't stop there. It seems that I'd made some kind of mistake and the bot was just opening a ton of positions all within seconds of each other. This is my transaction statement for the 16th of July, and you can see that at 1:30 I got an order on the pound yen, and I also a second later got one on pound dollar, and at the same second I got one on the S&P 500, and this just kept going. So within seconds I had multiple orders all lined up on the same three instruments. And I've got multiple pages, all covering the 16th of July. In total, the bot took 66 trades before I was able to turn it off. But luckily, that day I ran it on demo account because I expected there might be some kind of issues. I just didn't expect them to be so severe. I took the bot offline, and the next day, the 17th of July, I spent pretty much the whole day working on the bot trying to fix this problem. I actually did consider the issue of multiple signals happening at the same time, and I thought that I had a fix in place for it. But I guess I must have not implemented it correctly. What I had put in place on the S&P 500 previously was that if my bot opens a trade, then there's essentially a no-go area within 5 pips either direction of that entry price. And this allowed me to stagger the trades so that I wasn't having too many of them all happening at the same time. If there was a strong burst of momentum, at most the trades would be 5 pips away from each other, which is far more reasonable. And I actually have that in my code as a trade distance variable. Now it's set to 10, but at the time it was set to 5 pips. So I wasn't exactly sure what had happened, but after spending far too much time troubleshooting, I realized the problem was in the pip size. That was the main difference that I'd overlooked between something like the S&P 500 and forex pairs like the pound dollar. You see, my bot wasn't checking whether there was a difference of 5 pips, it was checking whether there was a difference in 5 full points. That took care of the main issue that I was having for that trading day. But there was another problem overall with the trading bot. The way the trading bot works is that it streams data live from the Oanda API. So I'm constantly getting price data, and it can be multiple times per second. And what I'm constantly measuring is how far prices moved within a certain amount of time, which essentially gives me a velocity for that price. If the velocity is above a certain threshold, then I treat that as a breakout or a potential reversal. On the S&P 500, I already had quite a lot of historical tick data that I was able to test on and optimize my thresholds. But I didn't have that for a forex pairs, so I kind of picked the numbers out of thin air. I think I did something like, if price moves more than 5 pips within 5 seconds, then I enter long, and I set my stop loss and take profit at 30 pips either side. This wasn't based on anything, I just needed something to use in my trading bot. But now, because the bot had run for a full day, I had some data. So I ran my backtest on the pound dollar and the dollar yen to find the best configuration of all of those parameters, the size of the move, the time window, as well as the stop loss and take profit. And what I noticed was that higher stop losses gave me good performance. I thought that was a little bit strange, but I pushed it even further and I added in a 100 pip stop loss, which gave me the best results on all of them. So I went into the next day, the 18th of July, with these updated settings of 100 pip stop loss and 25 pip take profit. It seemed to go completely against the initial idea of this scalping bot being tight stop losses, but I trusted the data and I went with those parameters. The bot took 2 trades, so there was one here at the start of the day that looked like it was going to be a reversal trade. So price very quickly dropped down and then picked back up. So the bot entered here with this massive 100-point stop loss and only a 25-point take profit. That trade was open for a little while before there was another potential reversal. So here you see another pretty quick drop, and the bot got in right at the bottom of that, which I was pretty impressed with. But again, I was sitting on a 100 pip stop loss with a 25 pip take profit. Both of those trades went on overnight, and eventually one of them closed out for a profit, and the other one I closed manually about a third of the way towards its take profit target. Although both of these worked, something just seemed a bit off with having such a massive stop loss. It seemed a bit counterintuitive. I went back into my backtest code and went through it again properly, and I realized I'd made a really big mistake. I have a section of code that checks every single tick, and once a trade is open, it monitors it to see whether it hits the take profit or whether it hits the stop loss. But there are some trades that continue going overnight without hitting either one of those outcomes. So I had an additional check for it that looks at whether the current day is different to the entry day, which basically means that the trade has now gone on past its initial entry and we've held overnight. If that happened, my trade logic was that it would just disregard that trade as if it never even happened. That was a placeholder. That was something that I added in at the start because I needed to catch these trades that weren't falling into the bucket of take profit or stop loss. The intention was always to come back and do something correct, but I forgot to do that. What this essentially meant for the bot, though, was that whenever there was a trade that was opened with a massive stop loss, if that stop loss wasn't hit during that day and it rolled into the next day, well, the backtester just disregarded that trade. So the trade could have gone against me by like 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 points, but it didn't matter to the backtester because as soon as we got to the end of the day, that trade was dropped and forgotten about. Of course, in real trading, that loss is still there. So that explained why my backtester was giving me much better results with bigger stop losses. I finally went back and fixed this section of code that basically said that if we have held overnight, then as soon as we get to the end of the day, I check whether that trade is green or red, basically if it's above the entry price or below the entry price. And based on that, I work out if it's a winner or a loser. That suddenly changed the result significantly, and the 100 pip stop loss was pretty terrible. So I guess I got a little bit lucky with that both of these trades ended up coming out ahead and didn't go really far against me taking a big loss. With those bugs fixed, I then reran the backtester again, now that I have even more data, and I got my updated parameters for my trading bot. After the weekend, on Monday the 21st, I had two trades. The first one was on the S&P 500, and it was again a reversal trade. This candle down here that formed this kind of pin bar, it dropped and then rebounded quickly. So the trading bot got in right away, essentially trying to catch a reversal. But that never materialized, the trade continued down the way, and this one actually opened quite late in the evening. It was 10 past 8 when it opened, so it held overnight, and then in the next morning I just closed it out for a loss. On the same day, I also had a dollar-yen trade. This was another reversal, so price dropped down pretty quickly. The bot entered it, hoping for a bounce back up. It did get that initially, and quite unfortunate here that the price did come quite close to my take profit, but it turned around, carried on the other direction, and eventually was stopped out later that day. The next day was a little bit better. This was Tuesday the 22nd of July, and I had one trade on the S&P 500. And this, once again, was a reversal trade. These are 5-minute candles, by the way, so had a pretty quick and pretty big drop on this red candle here. That signaled a reversal, and the bot got in again right at the bottom, which I was really happy with. It then held for not very long at all before hitting that take profit target. So that was a nice, quick, easy trade for the trading bot. Then came Wednesday the 23rd, and this was a really busy day for my trading bot. I started off, as always, by rerunning my backtester and getting some updated parameters for all of the instruments. On the S&P 500, by this point, I had enough data that my parameters weren't really changing that much. But on the pound dollar and the dollar yen, I tweaked them by tightening up the stop losses a little bit from the previous day. On the pound dollar, I got a trade in late afternoon. This green candle here showed a lot of momentum to begin with. So my trading bot got in here, expecting a continuation up the way. Price did initially move up, but you can see it quickly turned around and we were left with this big wick. The trade went against me a little bit, but then turned around and it carried on to a take profit. So it wasn't quite the momentum breakout that I was expecting, but it still worked out in my favor, so I'll take that as a win. The dollar yen wasn't quite as fortunate though. Here it picked up a trade, got in, I think it was maybe a reversal from this initial dip down. So at first it was looking pretty good, but it didn't quite make it to my take profit, turned around and stopped me out within a pretty short space of time. But very quickly after that, there was another trade signal. But this one didn't really go anywhere. It was just up and down, choppy. And eventually, I think I manually closed this one out and just took the loss on it. The S&P 500, however, did really well. So there was this initial trade down here, which was in the mid-afternoon. And I think this was a reversal trade. So again, price dipped down pretty quickly. The bot got in right at the bottom and I just rode that back up to a nice take profit. And then interestingly, as soon as I had that take profit, it happened on a pretty big momentum candle, this green one here. So the bot got right in again. This is on the 5-minute chart, so there might have been a minute or two between the trades. But not long after the first one closed, I opened a new one. This one went really well to begin with, pulled back, but then it went on to take profit again. So there was 2 trades on S&P 500 and 2 wins. And I think there was a third one later on. So this one opened up, unfortunately this one's late at night, so it was 9 p.m. And I probably need to think about adding a maximum time when my trades can open because I don't really want to hold them overnight. So 9 p.m. in the UK is just 1 more hour remaining before the market closes. I can't remember exactly if this was a momentum trade or if it was a reversal, but either way, the bot got in long here. This one didn't really go anywhere, and I think eventually I just closed it out manually the next morning. So it would have been around here that I closed it out, 8, 9 a.m. Annoyingly, it then did continue and hit my take profit. But when I closed it out, I took a small loss on it. Then the next day, Thursday the 24th, it was really quiet. I don't think I had a single trade the whole day. So I kind of took my eye off the ball a little bit and forgot to stop the trading bot after we hit 10 p.m. So this is now in the after hours trading session where the spreads open up massively, there's no liquidity, but my trading bot continued running. And on the pound dollar cross, there's this weird kind of price movement here that the bot mistook for a breakout. So we got in right up here. The spread was massive, so immediately the trade was like 70% of the way against me. I didn't want to close it out like that. I figured I'll just leave it and see what happens, but right enough, it hit the stop loss pretty comfortably. That was a lesson learned, so I added in an additional check into my trading bot, which checks for spread. So basically, if the spread exceeds an acceptable amount, then it just won't take that trade. And that kind of has a double benefit because on one hand, it means that I'll be kept out of these kind of situations if I forget to turn the bot off after hours. But it also means that during the day, if there is a sudden price surge and my bot tries to get into that trade, it will check the spread. And if the spread has widened too much, then the bot will just skip that trade. And that brings me to the last trading day, which was last Friday, the 25th of July. I had 2 trades. One of them was on the pound dollar, and it happened kind of in the early afternoon. The bot entered a trade on this candle here, and it was pretty choppy to begin with, so I wasn't really sure where this one was going to go. But we were starting to approach the market close, and I definitely didn't want to leave this one open over the weekend. And it must have been somewhere around here that I closed it because I remember getting out at break even. S&P 500 was more positive. I had a trade in the afternoon where there was a little dip from this red candle and then a sudden movement back up. So the bot detected that movement, got into the trade, and this time it was a nice momentum move. The price continued upwards in the direction of my take profit, which gave me 1 win and 1 break-even trade for the Friday, which was a nice way to round off the week. All in all, I ran my trading bot for, I think, 14 full days. I didn't live stream all of them, but there were some days at the start where I was kind of just developing the strategy. In that time, the bot took 26 trades. This doesn't include those 66 trades that the bot took on the 16th of July. That was all a result of a bug, so they don't really count towards these metrics. And most importantly, the trading bot actually made a profit. It was a modest profit of £4.10, but this is on an account balance of £100. So I'm testing this out on a live account, but with a small balance because I really don't know where this bot is going to go. This means that it's earned a return of 4.1% over those 14 trading days. And with those 26 trades that it took, it had a win rate of 58%. I did make a lot of adjustments with different risk to reward ratios as I optimized the values with each day. So I don't have an average reward to risk ratio. That would be a pretty handy metric to have as well, and maybe something I'll try and track for the future. A strange byproduct of running this bot though is that it's kind of doing something that I didn't expect it to. So my intention with this trading bot was that it would be a momentum scalping bot. So whenever price moved up really quickly, it would detect that and it would buy in, trying to catch that bigger move up the way. But what I've actually noticed, and where a lot of the profits from the strategy seem to come, is from reversal plays. For example, with this trade, the bot was able to get in really close to the bottom of this red candle and rode it on for a really nice, easy profit. And that's not an isolated incident either. This was another reversal trade where price was moving down pretty quickly, and the bot was able to get in near the bottom of this move and catch it all the way back up to take profit. I've only ran it over 14 days, so I guess it depends on the market conditions at the time, and this might just be what's happening right now. But I thought it was an interesting observation, since it's not actually what I intended this bot to do, but it seems to be doing it pretty well. At this point, it's too early to tell whether this is going to be profitable over the long term, but my initial results are promising, and whichever way it goes, it's an interesting project to work on. If you want to see how this progresses further, then hit subscribe to follow for regular updates. Thanks for watching.